Like how would they actually go about thinking about the why and the career and understanding that?
You can start thinking right now about the things you're doing. What do you like?
Which is why my life is in such disarray.
You need to read it.
All right. I'm really excited to be here at GradTalk MBA by Magoosh. Thanks for joining our podcast today. For those of you who are new here, I'm Eric Allen, General Manager here at Magoosh. Magoosh is an education technology company that aims to level the playing field by providing high quality, affordable test prep and admissions services and support. I'm sitting here chatting with a friend today, Amanda from Nashville, Tennessee. It's a little early in the morning, so no barbecue or anything like that yet. But we do have coffee. We each have we were just talking about our coffee that we have. So we're excited to have her. Yes, she's got the Vanderbilt swag. I actually have some of that at my house, courtesy of Amanda. So let's talk a little bit about who you are first. You have a really interesting background. So like one of the things I love talking to you about is kind of like you have this kind of, you've been in MBA, you've worked in career, you've worked in recruiting, you have all these things. So I often kind of pick your brain about things, but why don't you give the audience a little bit about yourself, your title, your role at the school, how you got into the role, and then maybe a fun fact about yourself.
Awesome. Thanks, Eric. So good to be here with you as always. But yes, I'm Amanda Fend. I'm the director of MBA Recruiting at the Owen Graduate School of Management at Vanderbilt. I'm originally from New England and was living in New York City in the world of marketing consulting when I decided myself to get my MBA. Ended up in Nashville. Thought I would be there for 2 years and back to New York, but loved my experience at Owen so much. Went through that whole process to get here and then lived that full life as an MBA. Ended up after Owen in Chicago back in marketing briefly, but then just got pulled to higher ed to Vanderbilt and actually came back to work at Owen. Spent 10 years that I absolutely loved coaching students in our career center. And then 2 years ago, got to join this team, leading the recruiting team, and I absolutely have loved being on the front end of the process, seen all sides. I've lived it. I've lived the process of applying to business school. So it's been so much fun to be on this end and helping candidates learn about our program and just navigate the process, because we know, as you know, it can be a lot. So have really loved being in this role specifically.
Okay, so help me and the audience understand, what is recruiting mean? Because I think a lot of candidates are applying really don't understand that different schools have different roles. So there's recruiting, there's admissions, there's ops, there's career services. Can you kind of lay out like what those roles mean? And then specifically at Owen, like what is your role within kind of those roles?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. And I think sometimes it's a mystery at a program, like who are all these different people and these teams that you might interact with. But just from, a candidate's perspective, the way that our team is set up is we have a recruiting team that I'm fortunate to lead. We have an admissions team. And then a lot of teams behind the scenes, our enrollment management team and marketing team, a lot of people we work with, but really recruiting and admissions work so closely together. And the role of recruiting for us is really meant to be someone that the recruiting managers are people that as soon as you interact with our program, as soon as you attend an event, raise your hand for info, you are automatically assigned a recruiting manager who is really like a guide for you throughout the process. We're not, we're the recruiting team. We're not the admissions team. We are there to help you learn about the program, answer questions. I mean, I'm sure we'll talk about it, but the process can be so overwhelming. And I view our team as, people that are there to walk alongside you and help you navigate it. And, we want you hopefully to get to the point where you apply to Vanderbilt. Then you go through the admissions process. Always happy to answer questions about that. And then once candidates are admitted, which to be honest is the most fun part, to get to call candidates and let them know they've been admitted, then to walk alongside them as they make that decision. And then, if they decide to come to Owen, really help them. And we're, at the kind of the end of this process right now, help them onboard. It's such a big, you think it's over once you submit your application and decide where to go to school, but it's really just the beginning of your MBA journey. So we really work with candidates to help them, get to that point where they're stepping on campus. And then, we just get to spend time with them for 2 years. So that's really how I view the role of the recruiting team, to be a resource.
So it's interesting. So, like, the admissions team obviously works through and decides candidates, but recruiting, it sounds like your role is not just recruiting the best candidates, but you're kind of almost like barbell, right? You recruit, you put them into the admissions process to a certain extent, and then it sounds like you're involved with yield, like in making sure the candidates come to Owen and have a really good experience. So how has I'm just kind of interested in this role, but how has that maybe changed um, in light of the fact that candidates now kind of have like the consortium application, and they're applying to multiple schools, and in some cases they're putting down multiple deposits. How has that
Mhm.
made it maybe more challenging for you from a yield standpoint to kind of engage candidates? Like, what are the kinds of things that you do to ensure that candidates understand, what the experience would be like at Owen?
Yeah, that's such a good question. And I think, one thing I'd want people to take away, not just me, speaking from Vanderbilt, but just having gone through the process and then watched people in our program is it is such a big decision. I mean, obviously people pursuing their MBA are thinking of like, I'm doing this thing, I have some gap or, some goal I want, gap I want to fill, goal I want to achieve. So I'll go to business school for 2 years, I'll do that, and then I'll go get that job or whatever it is. But really, I mean, where you go to school, hopefully, is like it's like your community for life. I mean, you're stuck with them. I'm just kidding. No, but they're going to be there for you for, trust me, like the rest of your life if you want them to be in ways that you don't even know yet. And so I think it is so important that you pick, a candidate picks a school that is the right fit for them, like the place that they will be most successful. And like hopefully for many people that's Vanderbilt, I always hope, but at the end of the day, we want people who will, choose Vanderbilt because it's going to support them, help them achieve their goals, but be like the right community for them. And it might not be for everybody. So, what does that mean for recruiting? Like, what does that mean for candidates in the process? I think it means like you really need to spend the time to get to know all things about the program. And so our team, our role is to like cultivate those opportunities. And they can be really big and they can be really small. They can be like, we have big weekends in Nashville. We want people to experience Nashville and think like, is this a place I want to live for 2 years and meet the people? And it can also be really small. Like we have recruiting and admissions fellows, like current students on our website that are just like, you can literally go to the website and sign up on, through a link to talk to them because nothing beats talking to students who are in the program right now. So whether it's virtual events, in-person events, questions that the recruiting managers get from candidates, it's really our job to help provide opportunities for people to learn because we want them at the end of the day to make a really informed decision because this is it for life. I mean, it's it for a very intense 2 years, but this is the community you're choosing, for the long term. So we want people to make good decisions and find the right place for them.
That's great. Before I always go off script, so I want to make
Yeah.
sure that I forced you to give me your fun fact. And if you gave me one, just give me another one because that's fun. That's more fun. So what's the fun fact about yourself? Um, and give it to me. Give us a good one.
All right. Don't be mad at me. I was thinking I have to give, you heard me say this because I happened to talk to you the day it happened So I have to give this Nashville fun fact that happened to me. So
I think I
I
know this
I
one.
know it literally happened that day that I then was talking to you, and I was like, I can't believe this just happened. It's still like the most exciting thing that happened to me in months. But had a meeting. I'll make it short. I had a meeting across campus at 8 a.m. at Vanderbilt, and I thought it's not where I normally go. I was driving, and I thought, of course I could park at 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. at the Vanderbilt bookstore. So I parked my car. There was no one there. I went to the meeting. I went to the Starbucks right there, made a purchase, and then I looked out and they were towing my car. And I was like, oh my gosh, I ran outside like, hey, like, oh my gosh, I'm here. Like, please don't tow my car. I was just at the Starbucks. Like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. Like, what can I do? And it wasn't a Vanderbilt employee. And usually people are very nice in Nashville, but the person had put my car up and he was like, I'm sorry. Like, I have to tow your car. I was begging him. He's like, well, if you have $100 now, you have $100 in cash. Like, I won't tow it. And I was like, I don't have $100 in cash. Who's walking around with that? So he was starting to tow my car, and this guy ran out and was like, hey, what's happening? What are you doing to this woman's car? Like, hey, what's going on? And the guy said, I need $100. And he whips out his wallet. And he's like, of course, here, let me give you money. And I looked over and it was the country singer Dirk Bentley. And I was like, oh, hey. So Dirks was like, no problem. Here, just take $100. My good deed of the day. It was so funny because I was like, that's so Nashville that, just Dirks Bentley was just having a meeting and ran out and saved the day. So
Now, you didn't take advantage of social media to get like a picture with him and like the car. Not you didn't do that.
I know. Well, I had a feeling I'll see him again. Somewhere in Nashville. I think our kids overlap some places. So I was like, I'll play it cool. And the next time I see him, maybe I'll buy him, a drink or like a hot dog at a sporting event or something. But
Yeah, a hundred
yeah,
dollar hot dog. That would be very nice of you.
I
No,
think it was his good deed.
that's really cool. And by the way, the people in Nashville are very nice. So I don't. This must have been a New Yorker maybe that just moved down there or something. Uh,
Exactly.
so let's jump into some school specific questions. You're on the road. You're talking about Owen, what Vanderbilt brings to the table. What is the one thing that you would say really, or maybe it could be multiple things that really differentiates Owen from other schools, right? Because so many candidates are talking to different schools and they just can't win here, or like, if you're at a tour event or something like that, they've heard it all. It seems like it's the same thing from every school. So like boil it down for us, like what makes Owen different?
Yeah. I'll start with, I'll say just a few three things. And the one, I just said it, but Nashville, I mean, there's nowhere like it. And it is a really, really special place to go to school. I'm not going to lie. It was a big reason I chose Vanderbilt and then, among others, but it's a really, really special place. I'll leave it at that. I think two things that really stand out to me I find myself saying over and over, and then I find students saying over and over once they've been here is one is our small size. So we aim for about 170 to 175 per class. That translates to a very personalized experience. So you will really get to know your classmates. You will know all of them, and I think it is small enough that you will know all of them, and you will know all of them well, and create some really deep connections. Maybe even with people that you wouldn't normally, be interacting with a lot. But it is still big enough that you are always learning new things about people. And you're always still meeting people. So our size, I think, just lends itself really well to like maximizing your time in your MBA. And then just the last thing I think is, and it's hard to just convey it on like a video. I think people will have to come here sometimes, and when they come, they're like, oh, I get it, I see it, I'm feeling it. And it's the collaborative community. So our marketing materials at some point had this phrase that was like, we're collaborative, not cutthroat. And I laugh because I'm like, no, but it's really true. Of course, I mean, we're an MBA program, like it's full of type A driven people. It'd be weird if it wasn't. But there's this feeling among students that, you help your classmates. we're all in this together and we're like going to support each other through it. And I can't tell you how many times I've seen students and alums, bending over backwards to help each other. And that's what's cool. It's like this feeling while you're here, then the alums go out and they still have that feeling. So even as alums, I mean, I'm not in the career center anymore, but I probably get like a text or an email a week from an alum who's like, how can I help? Or how can I be, literally just how can I be involved? Or my company's hiring, or my friend's hiring. Is there an Owen student who would be interested in this? So it really is that type of community, and it's sometimes I feel like people don't believe it until they come, and then they're like, I got it, I see it.
So that's I you know normally ask, like, is there something on the that's like not on the website that you would want to convey to candidates? And it sounds like it could be that, right? Like it's like that sense of community that's hard for people to understand. Like, do you have any examples, either as a student or from other students, that really speaks to kind of that support? Because like sometimes people can't get on a plane and come down, but like those examples can really resonate with folks. So do you have one? It's okay if you don't.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I saw this like happen once, but I saw it happen over and over when I was a career coach. I mean, obviously, students in any MBA program are, in a way, they're competing with all MBAs, but they are competing with each other a bit when they're, applying for internships and full time jobs. And so, you might all be interviewing with the same company. And I cannot tell you how many times I saw, and it could be, it was marketing students, it was healthcare students, it was consulting students, that's an intense recruiting process, like working with each other and trying to give each other a leg up and supporting each other. And, students would say to me all the time, they would go I worked with a lot of healthcare students. They would go to a company across the country and they would be like, yeah, we were like, I went and then I saw all my classmates, like we all knew each other and we were like, pumping each other up and trying to help each other, give tips, throughout that process. And it was like that collaborative feeling. They brought it to something that like isn't typically very collaborative or you would think it would be. And so, I just saw that in small ways and in big ways all throughout that like really intense, internship and full-time recruiting process.
That's great. Also, like what I love about that story is, it's not just about a campus experience, right? It's a lifelong experience, right? So these are folks that don't have to, act collaborative because that's the culture, but it's like beyond that, right? Like as alums, people supporting each other in the career world. That's when you really know that it's genuine, right? That's not just something that happens on campus, which is
Yeah.
important.
Yeah. It was funny. I'll say one other thing. Our alums, like they want to be so involved. About a year ago, I was in Chicago for a GMAC event and I posted something on LinkedIn and one of our alums texted me and was like, you're doing this event in Chicago? Like, hello, I'm here. I want to do it. Like, do you need me? Can I do it? And so I was like, you can come to the next one. So, and I feel like that kind of thing happens a lot. So they're just really excited, even when their students are excited to help when they're here, but then they become alums who are excited to help.
Yeah, no, that's fabulous. I'm going to pivot a little bit to recruiting, which is
Yeah.
right in your sweet spot. Um, when you're on the road and you're talking to multiple people in a day or whatever, what are the kinds of character traits that you're looking for in a candidate that would be a good fit for Owen? Like, and maybe just give us like, hey, you're talking to a bunch of people, and I really like it when I see people who exhibit these types of character traits.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a great question. And I think there's a few things that stand out. I mean, one thing that I think is important to Owen, and I think it's important to also to companies. And I was just giving a talk about our leadership development program and leadership because I think just having been in the career center, that one of the number one things that companies are looking for is leadership is leadership, but also like leadership potential, because not every MBA candidate and then who becomes a student like has had like tons of formal leadership experience and led a huge team, which many have, which is amazing, like formal leadership. But I think companies, and we're trying to mirror, what we want students to be successful. Like we want people to come into our program and then get the jobs and internships that they want. So I think looking for people who are leaders, and that doesn't have, I mean, it can be the formal experience where we have students who've done amazing things. I was talking to someone recently and I was like, even in a very short time, just a few years of work experience was leading like major things. But it could also be informal leadership. And I always tell students, and this is something I always can identify in people, it could be something informal, like a good leader recognizes problems and comes up with solutions that maybe weren't even like part of a formal process. Or a good leader recognizes their weaknesses and says, I want to do something about these, and makes a plan. So I think like leadership in all forms, and it can be shown in so many different ways. I think just from Owen's standpoint, we are always looking for people who want to be at Owen. I mean, I think that's really important. And maybe they don't know they want to be at Owen because they're so early in the process. They're like, some people might come up to us and say, like, what is Vanderbilt? Like, what are you all about? I don't even know anything, but tell me. And that's great. And then some people, as they go through the process, like I think we get excited when people are excited about what they're learning and kind of see their values and goals align with what ours are. So that's always, I think, something that's exciting over time to see.
I'm gonna stick with something in that space. You mentioned, I know that you'd worked in career services for a long time, and also having kind of been an MBA at the program makes you a really unique person for this role. But what do you maybe look for that's different from a career standpoint? Because in the context is a lot of candidates come and they don't know what they want to do. So, like, what kind of advice would you give to candidates who are really trying to maybe figure out, narrow down what they want to do from a career standpoint? And then what do you look for? Do you just look for directional, like someone's actually thought it out? So, what advice do you give for folks who are trying to figure out, like, you're going to get to an MBA and not really know what you want to do, and then you're going to figure something out? But also, kind of what is that kind of guidance, and what are you looking for when you're evaluating candidates?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And I think you just touched on something so important that, you know, not everyone knows exactly what they want to do. And I could probably count, I'll say two hands because there was a lot of students, but the amount of people who came in and they were like, I want to do this in this city, or we're very specific. And then they went on and they did exactly that. It's like, it's actually, people change their minds or they learn about new things. And I think that's kind of the goal for us of our program is we will give you the resources and exposure, et cetera, to learn about things and potentially change your mind and do like find that right thing for you. But I think in order to, be someone who can do that, I think it's helpful. I mean, you want to at least have a direction and have done your research in order to pick the right program, have an idea about what you want to do, and then try to feel sense like, would this program align with that? But also know that you might change your mind. And so being someone who can be adaptable, curious, like someone who is a learner and wants to learn, there's so many resources and people and classes and projects and companies and that, like we want people who want to take advantage of that. And so I think there's like a mix of qualities, some of which I just mentioned, coupled with leadership, coupled with like, you've made a plan. It doesn't mean you have, no one's going to check with you in 5 years and be like, are you an investment banker in the healthcare sector in New York? But I think also like the way our application is, I mean, there's 7 different components, and I think that's done thoughtfully so that like, one person doesn't have to be, everyone's not going to be strong in the same areas necessarily. And so it's hard to say that there's like one thing, but I think Those are a few qualities that come to my mind.
All right, so we could chit chat about stuff forever, so we're not going to do that. But let's kind of talk a little bit about, you talked about like the application um, components, and so um, I know you work in recruiting, but obviously you know all things, everything, career, admissions, recruiting. Can you talk a little bit about like what to expect in the application and what kinds of things a candidate who's applying to Owen should be prepared to articulate in the application process for a successful application?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a good question. And obviously, as people have get into the process, they see there's, various pieces of the application. And a lot of people will ask, what's the most important one? And there's not one that's most important. I mean, I think that's by design, but I would say one that is a little bit undervalued by candidates, in my perspective, are the essays, because that's really a play. That's like one of the areas where candidates have like complete control, um, and it's a place where people can really, hopefully, be authentic and personal. You can't always control things that have already happened, like your undergrad GPA, or maybe, it's difficult, maybe standardized tests are hard for you, but you have complete control over the essay. And I think for us, it's really important to feel like we're getting to know a candidate in the process, and like the real candidate. Like, I think you can tell when someone's not like really showing who they are or what they really want. And so I think the essays are a really helpful place to do that. Um,
And how much time, like for the whole application process, whether it's thinking about the MBA, digging into your background, finding the authentic you, all of those things, how much time do you recommend candidates put aside to have a successful process?
yeah. I mean, I really empathize with students going through this process because it was a while ago. I won't tell you when, but I remember, how hard it was to set aside time. I know a lot of people who are applying are still working or currently working or in the military or just doing, very, very busy. And so I guess the famous business school answer is it depends how much time you should set aside. So, you know, there are certain people I think who know from like eighth grade, maybe not, maybe like college. They know, when they're doing their undergrad, like that business school is in their future. And then I think there's people who are, in their job and something happens and then it's like late in the cycle of the business school cycle. They're like, wait a second, like an MBA is maybe a good fit for me. So it kind of depends where you are in the process. Like you might not have as much time as you'd like, but the one thing I would say it's important to set aside time to do is to self-reflect. And I know that's true for our application. I think it's true across the process. Like you need to think about why do you want to go to business school? What need is it meeting for you? What might be your goal might change. But like in order to find the right program, you need to have thought through those things. And in order to have the best application, you really need to be able to show a school, I've thought about this and here's what I'm telling you about me. And so it might not be as much time as you'd like for that, but I think that's a pretty important part of the process. Can't skip it.
Like, do you feel like when people maybe either get off track or like you do you feel like sometimes that's the area where maybe they didn't spend the time like just from your own experience either through the program or your experience in recruiting or even in career, like have you seen that kind of go downstream into the actual MBA student, someone who doesn't spend enough time thinking about it, and like how much time like is enough time, because like we talked about, like you still won't necessarily know, like you can really think about things but you don't have full exposure to everything until you go through the program. So
Mhm.
like what kinds of resources would you recommend that people engage with to kind of dig in to actually think about what they want to do and all of those things? Do they talk to students? Do they talk to alums? Do they like how would they actually go about thinking about the why and the career and understanding that?
Yeah, that's such a good question. And I think one of the easiest things that anybody could do, even if they don't go to business school, that's free and easy, is to start thinking right now. So I know a lot of people are working or doing, they're doing something. You can start thinking right now about the things you're doing. What do you like? What gives you energy, and what do you not like about your job now, or about things you've done? Like, you could start doing that now. I don't know if you read the book Designing Your Life? And
I don't think I have,
it's
which is why my life is in such disarray.
you need to read it. They're in California. It's two Stanford professors, so you're on the West Coast, you could pick it up. It's such an awesome book. I always recommend it to MBA students or anyone, even in this process. They give really helpful exercises that anyone can do to think about. I think one of the things they talk about is, does it, you go to you do a task, or you go to something, like, did that give you more energy, or did it drain your energy? And you can start even like thinking about that as you work. Like, what kinds of things do you like doing? What do you not like doing? I would tell MBA students when I was in the Career Center, like, every single thing you go to, and you could do this for the admissions process. I mean, transfers, like, every single thing you go to, a company's info session, a conversation with an alum, when you walk out of that, did that make you more excited or less excited? And you could apply that to schools. Like, and you can, all the things you said, like, you could talk, and it doesn't even have to be people at a school. It could be people in your network, like alums, people in certain jobs that you might think, I might want to do that after my MBA. Students at a school, faculty, like, and I know for Vanderbilt, and I think this is true of many schools, like, we offer so many ways you could engage with us. Like, you could spend all day, every day, like, engaging with us if you wanted to. But like, you should take advantage, a candidate who's interested, they should take advantage of those opportunities to see, like, every time I engage with the school, am I more excited about it? Does it confirm something for me about what I want to do? Like, I'm having a conversation with a current student who's in healthcare. Did that make me more excited about healthcare? Did that make me want to learn more? Or did that make me say, like, plenty of times you might talk to someone and be like, no, I do not want to do whatever it is they're doing. And so I think that's something so easy. I mean, there's so many resources. You can do so much research, but that's something easy that I think people overlook.
I love that. Like, I feel like when we post this podcast, that's got to be like the thumbnail, like how to design your life, Amanda. We'll definitely have to put a link in here, and then we'll Venmo you whatever credits that you get from the book selling. No, that's really fantastic, because I do agree. Like you really want to know, like, I mean, we've been doing this for a little bit of time, and so you want to know, like, what makes you excited. You want to be authentic about who you are, and like that's one of the best ways to kind of think about it. So I appreciate you for sharing that. All right, let's go into some of the application elements specifically. So when you are applying, well, first of all, I want to get out this first piece because it's probably on folks' minds. But let's talk about the test, that fabulous test that we have, right? So GMAT, GRE. Can you talk about Owen's approach to the test? Do you offer test waivers? Do you think differently about either the test? Do you accept tests beyond GRE, GMAT? Do you go into kind of EA and other tests? Just talk about the general test strategy. Let's get that. That's going to be the topic, and maybe people will stop after this podcast. I don't know.
Yeah.
Hopefully not.
Yeah, no, I know that's such a big thing. And I remember that being like, I took the GMAT when I applied, and it was like the hardest piece for me, and making the time for it. And it felt, big and scary. So I totally empathize and understand what that's like. And so for Vanderbilt, so one of the first things I would encourage, or we would encourage students to do, is think about, because we do offer a test waiver. So I would think about, as early as possible in the process, like, am I going to take a standardized test? And we offer multiple tests. We do offer the or accept the executive assessment, the GMAT, the GRE, the new forms of them that are coming. And so I would think early on, I always encourage candidates like, are you going to take a test or do you want to apply for the test waiver? Because if you want to apply for the test waiver and you receive it, then there you have an answer and you can kind of tailor now the process, without a standardized test. So I think that's the first thing. But I think, students often ask also like, which one do you value more? And the answer is we accept all of them. And my personal advice would be take the one that you'll be most successful at or that you're most comfortable with. I mean, we really are open to all of them. And we know that, it's a hard thing for people to do. And I'm always empathetic to that, having, studied late nights in my office to take it. But yeah, that's what I would say about the tests.
So you mentioned something around kind of guidance to the candidates. So from a recruiting standpoint, as people are going through this process, usually what happens is you're trying to figure out if you want an MBA. Then you're like, you know what, I'm more serious about this. I think I'm going to do this. Then you start to narrow the list down and all of that stuff. How do you encourage folks to have conversation, or I shouldn't even say conversation, but engagement with Owen throughout that process? Like, so you talked about the resources you had, then you talked about, hey, yeah, you can come talk to us. But like, as you whittle it down, right? You start with maybe the website, then you go here, then you go here, then maybe should they reach out, and have a one-on-one conversation if they did have a question around like, should I apply for a waiver? Do I have a good enough background? Like, are there things that I should do to improve my profile? Can you walk us through like maybe your ideal candidate in terms of how they engage with Owen, and then ultimately the kinds of things that they can do to kind of, um, have deeper engagement with you over time as they learn more and get more excited about the program?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. And I think I mean, we are always thinking, and this is like always top of my mind, is the candidate experience and putting ourselves in the shoes of a candidate and what that's like. And not just, and we know that, as everyone should, that, they're not just looking at us, you're likely looking at multiple programs. And so how can we make it as easy as possible for candidates to kind of walk along that journey you just mentioned? So we've kind of designed the recruiting process. If we can meet people wherever they are, like someone might call and be like, hey, I'm about to submit the application. I've never spoken to anyone, but I have a quick question. We can help them. But if someone was like going to start at the beginning, I mean, we really start like we tried to offer like two kind of big webinars, bigger topics, like a program overview. Like if you didn't know anything about our program and you were like, just give me like the 45-minute, what do I need to know? That's a program overview. And our team, my recruiting team, does that. And then we have an admissions 101, and the director of admissions, Bailey McChesney, does that several times a year. I mean, multiple times. And it's really meant to give like insight into like, what are the parts of the application? How can you manage your time? Tips. I mean, it's like you're hearing it directly from Bailey. What is the best way to approach this? So those are two places to start that are helpful. But I think like then after you get through those overviews, it's like you really want to get like a real sense of what it's like. And so we created a couple small group sessions. They're virtual. We want to make them accessible. A lot of our candidates are not in the US, so we want to make it really easy for people, offer things at multiple times for different time zones. But we offer a small group with current students. So we have a team, some of my most favorite students. I know you've met some of them. They will offer this, and we do it once a week, and it's just like the students run it. And you join this small group session. There's no real agenda. The agenda is whatever people want to talk about. It's usually like it's a small group. Like usually it's not too many people, so you can really like ask them whatever is on your mind. There's no staff in it. It's just like the student perspective. We offer a session like that with our peer coaches in our career center. So career focused. We offer it with our team. It's just like no agenda. Hey, you have questions for the recruiting team? Like, we can, walk you through tips, but like answer any questions you have. And then I mentioned this earlier, but I wish I had done more of this when I was a candidate. We have recruiting and admissions fellows. So we hire them. They're students who are like, sign me up. I want to be a resource. Like, I love talking to people about the program and whose shoes I was just in. They're on our website and they are just there to talk. We pay them, like we say, be authentic, give them their real story, your real experience. And like, people could talk to them anytime. You could talk to all of I wouldn't recommend this, but you could talk to each one of them if you're like, I'm going to hear, multiple perspectives. So, and then of course we have big events. You can come to Nashville and meet, like, all our clubs and our faculty, and those are awesome and really, really fun and helpful. But I think just, to start, those virtual small groups and those virtual overviews are really helpful.
And I love the fact that you've kind of built it Owen style, right? Like a small group, community, connection, etc. So that's great. It sounds like no matter where you are in the world, you can make that kind of connection, and it really starts with some of those introduction videos and learning more about the program. So that's really helpful. So as we get into the admissions committee now, I'm really curious. Obviously, you work closely with Bailey and the team there, but like, how does recruiting work with admissions? And can you give us a general overview of what the admissions process is at Owen? Do you look at the GMAT GRE and then you have a box that one goes one way, one goes the other way, or is it a holistic review? Like, how does the whole thing work?
Yeah, no, I know. I remember being like, this is a mystery. Like, what happens to my application when I apply? And I mean, I will say that, and I was fortunate when I was in my role in the Career Center. I spent several years on the admissions committee representing the Career Center, and then obviously now I'm part of it and in my role. But I will say, like, that the whole process. I mean, the application itself, but from the process of what happens when someone submits an application till a decision is made is so thoughtful. I mean, I think when it was designed, it was really meant to reflect, like, the amount of time and effort that we know each candidate puts into their application. And we want an equal amount of time and effort to be put into considering it and learning about that person. And so I know that at least four people touch an application once it is submitted. It goes through four different kind of people engaging with it and reviewing it. And then the admissions committee itself is made up of several different people from, the recruiting managers, the recruiting team, the admissions team, our career center is engaged in that, our enrollment management team, the application readers that we have. So there's so many layers to it. And I think it's really, decisions are team based. And I think what I'd want candidates to know is that we know how much effort they put into that. And so we want to ensure that we are giving every application the time and attention and care it should have.
I'm just curious, like, and you obviously can't talk about specific candidates, but in your role in either career services or in recruiting, have you ever had a candidate where you either like were like, this candidate's amazing, and maybe admissions doesn't feel the same way, or maybe in career services where you're like, this is going to be a tough sell. I don't know, but admissions is like, yeah, but we like them. Like, how do you, I mean, obviously your colleagues, but like, how do you like reconcile that? Like, and I mean, is it just one of those things where ultimately at the end of the day, you each state your case and you know that there's going to be some that you get through, some that you don't, and you just kind of have to work through the process.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. And it would be, I mean, I think if everyone always felt the exact same way about everyone, that would be boring. I mean, that would like mean the process is not working. So I think what I think is great about it is that, it really it's a process that welcomes and like actually facilitates different viewpoints, and they're not always the same, but then the way we come together and the way it operates is like it welcomes that discussion. And it's sometimes not the easiest decisions, but it welcomes everyone's input. And there's been so much care leading up to it that, it's not just like, okay, oh, wow, all of a sudden everyone, there's been this whole process. So everyone can kind of see how we got to where we are with this, whatever application it is, and then can have like a really robust or really helpful discussion where like different viewpoints can be heard. So it's very collaborative, collaborative, not cutthroat. Same for the, the admissions committee. Um,
That was well done. That was
we
a
all like each other very much.
that was well placed. Triple down the line. Very, very well done, Amanda. All right, so we're going to get into our fact versus fiction here in a second, but before that, I want to ask you this question. Um, what's kind of the number one misconception about getting in or about Owen in general, right? So it's like usually like the East Coast, West Coast schools are pretty lazy because they're like, yeah, everyone knows my city, so it's like easy, whatever. And it's like everyone else has to actually like get rid of some of these misconceptions of where they are and what the program's about or whatever else. So what's the one that you hear all the time where you're just like, where are they getting this from?
Ooh, that's a really good one. Um, well, the first thing that comes to mind is not necessarily about Owen, but I've heard it from student candidates. And I'm guessing this happens in other places too, but this misconception that like, um, if the students get fixated, or candidates, sorry, often I've found get sometimes fixated on one thing. And I'll give you an example. Several years ago, I was in the Career Center and admission said, hey, can you have lunch with this candidate because they're trying to make a decision tomorrow. I was like, oh, no pressure. But they're fixated on this specific career thing. Like, and when I had lunch with the candidate, they were like, I want to work at this one company. Like, that's all I want. And they don't come on campus to Vanderbilt, but they do come on campus to this other school. And it's funny because now the student ended up coming to Vanderbilt and they are not at that company, nor did they want to go to that company once, a week after they got here. But I think people fixate on one thing. And what they don't realize is that if you go to a great school and if people come to Vanderbilt, they can get to that thing they want. If that candidate had won, I was like, you can get to that company. I was the coach at the time for that area. They wanted to, I was like, you can get there. They might not be like they're coming to campus and you're meeting them and then like you get the internship, but like you're a good candidate. Like we have the resources. We have alums there who will bend over backwards for you. Like don't let that be the reason you do or do not pick a program. So I think that's a common. I mean, I don't think everyone is necessarily just thinking of one thing, but people might think, oh, I want to do XYZ function. I better go to that XYZ school because that's their specialty. I mean, if you're a good candidate, which, everyone is, and if you have a school like Owen that has the resources available and they're accessible, like you can do whatever you want. You can make it, we can help you make it happen. So I wouldn't say it's a misconception, but that's like something I see candidates sometimes do. And I want them to know like it will be okay. You have if you need to more important than that is like where are you going to be successful? What type of program? And our community is so great for so many people, but it might not be for everyone. If you want like a really big program and you kind of want to like be more a commuter school or like kind of sit in the back of the classroom sometimes and not, kind of choose the back seat most of the time, like that's not going to work here because the professor knows you and they'll be like, hey, why aren't you talking? And
So
so,
don't come to Owen if you want to hide is really
yes.
otherwise it's the perfect fit. I think that's
Yeah.
kind of where we're coming
Yeah.
out.
Just
Yeah.
don't hide. Don't hide. I'm in the
If you want to
career
hide,
center.
you can go to all the other 100, 200 plus schools.
Yes.
But if you don't want to hide, this is your place. So I think we're
Yeah. And
done
what,
here recruiting.
yeah. Yeah. When I was a career coach and I wouldn't hear back from someone, I was like, why aren't they responding to my email? I would literally like go out into the hallway when class was getting out because our building is such that like everyone's walking by everyone, and I'd be like, I'm gonna find them, and then I'd be like, hey, I see you. Like, where have you
Right.
been? Why haven't you responded? You can't
Uh,
hide from me.
yeah, no. Actually, gosh, we have so much to cover, and really quickly because I think that I love Owen's building and like all the work that's been done, and it's you're in the I think the library right now, which is kind of
Yes.
like on one side of campus. And can you talk about just the facility real quick and like where everyone kind of hangs out, how it all works, just to give our viewers a sense of what the actual physical building is like.
Yeah, definitely. I know this wall behind me is not like giving you the full picture, but yes, you saw it in action. So we did. It was so exciting. A massive renovation that took over 2 years, and it really like alums, people who come, they love the building because the shape of the building, it's like a U, and so it really creates this place where it's like easy to interact, where you're going to see everyone, people come and hang out. You walk in the building for class, you're going to see, tons of people, and all the staff are right there. Their offices are right off the lobby. The professors are all on the third floor. All their offices are there. So they didn't change the shape. They just really made the building so much better. They gutted and redid a lot of the classrooms. They created, I think it wasn't open yet when you were here last year, but they created a huge great room that we can host. We've already had like 15 events in there. We were like, how do we live without this? And made it like one of the goals was to make it much more open to the Nashville community because I mean, you were here in Nashville. There is so much happening in Nashville. I mean, it is growing. I think it's like the second fastest growing city for years. Some crazy number of people move here every day. There's so much opportunity, and it doesn't mean you have to come to Owen and then stay in Nashville. Like go, fly away, go to another city. But what it means for MBA students is that there's so much opportunity for like project work, in-school internships. There's so many companies and alums here, and so we wanted to make the building just more open and a place where more of those interactions and special events and gatherings could happen, which I've already seen happening. So people like to be in the building. They like to, come spend the day. Every Thursday we have, a social gathering called Closing Bell with, staff, faculty, dogs, children. I mean, it's such a fun place to gather now.
Yes, and I feel like every time I'm there, like you describe the building as a U with I guess the bottom of the U being like the lobby area or whatever. But
Mhm.
every time I'm there, there's something going on in that like center. So it's like
Mhm.
you can't help but walk through all you're like, hey, what's this? Like, there's food, there's coffee, there's whatever. So I definitely suggest that if you're interested in knowing that you visit. All right, so we're going to fact versus fiction. So we'll go through a couple of these. Um, One, the way that it works is I'll kind of make a statement and you'll say fact or fiction, and you'll give me, if you choose to do so, a quick response and context around fact or fiction. Are you ready, Amanda?
Yes,
All right.
I'm ready.
First fact or fiction, by the way, these are some of them may come off the top of my head, so you need to be prepared.
Oh yeah.
The first is fact or fiction. Most of the people who go to Owen stay in Nashville afterwards.
Fiction. It is insane if you look at the employment report. I mean, a fair amount of people now stay, and I would say it's not. I mean, they're actually it's gotten to be there's so many great opportunities and tech companies and things moving here and opening, but a lot of people move here to go to Owen and then they're like, I'm not leaving. I love Nashville, or they come back like I did. So there are some people who stay here, but people go all over. But often they move here and they're like, "I'm sorry, help me find a job in Nashville. Like we're not leaving."
Okay. Fact or fiction, candidates must score within the 80% test range in order to be accepted.
Fiction. I mean, there's not one. There's not a specific criteria everyone has to meet. Everyone's
Okay, they do
different.
get harder now, so I'm just preparing you. Okay. Um, Fact or fiction, there's a minimum amount of time that you need to have worked in order to be accepted into the program. 1 year, 2 years, whatever it is, fact or fiction.
Fiction, fiction. There's not a minimum. I will put my career hat on though, and advice for all. I think a lot of companies recruiting MBAs are looking for a certain amount of work experience, and so I think it can be helpful depending on what an MBA wants to do post their MBA. It's just something to be aware of. We don't have a minimum amount, but I think from a career standpoint, it's helpful to think about like what is it that you want to do, and then investigate like is that important to that industry that you have a number of things, a certain amount of work, years of work experience, a certain background, certain skill set, et cetera.
Okay. Fact or fiction? Owen offers financial aid in all rounds, not just round one, round two.
Fact. Fact.
Okay. Um, fact or fiction? If you don't get into a top 20 school like Owen, it's not worth getting an MBA.
Fiction. I mean, and I think back to what I was saying about that candidate I mentioned who was like, I only want to come if I can go to this company. I mean, there are so many things that you can do in any program, but the MBA itself and what you make of the experience and what the school offers you can just completely change your life. And there's a school for everybody, a program for everybody. And if you find the right one for you, it does not matter. It does not matter what ranking it is. So I would say.
Okay. All of those lesser schools are very happy that you said that about them. Um, so let's transition to rapid fire round. In this round, if you choose to accept it, we
Yes.
will,
I'm gonna have a copy.
I will give you a few words and then you will give me what comes, one word or two or three that comes to mind when I give you that phrase. Are you ready?
I just had some coffee, so yes.
Okay,
Ready.
here we go. Number one, the perfect applicant.
Cares.
Interesting.
I'll
I'm
just leave it at
processing that one. Okay. Number two, the feeling of getting accepted into your dream program. Owen.
Joy. Joy. It's the
Um,
best feeling ever
I
to
feel like
make
you're
that
too good.
call.
I feel like you're too good at this. I don't know what's going on right now. Okay, the GMAT.
You can do it.
All
You can do
right.
it.
Okay. There, you at least violated the rules. Okay.
Yeah.
Admissions myths.
They are myths. They are
I like
myths.
that.
Know
I like
that.
that. I like that. A turnaround on me. Very good. Top 20.
Okay, this is like 6 words, 5, 6. Um, where will you be most successful?
That was cheating. And because we are close friends, I will allow it. However, that was probably the worst cheat of all the podcasts that I've done. So you are clearly,
Successful.
you're getting a yellow card for that one.
All right, I'll make sure whatever, I'll do just one word for the next one.
Okay. Owen.
Home.
Very good. You closed off on a good note there. So we're basically done. Is there anything else that we didn't get a chance to talk about that you want to run through or leave the audience with?
That's great. Well, thank you so much. I loved getting to chat with you, and I know we've gotten to know each other, and you've gotten to know Owen. So I love being able to share it with, you know, this audience and people who might not know about it. But I would just say that, you know, I think you said what is not on the website or what do people not know? And I would say that the number one thing, and I can say this from having been in the program, been on the, in the career team coaching students, now on this side, is that the people at this place care so much. And that might seem, it's a business school, like, it's 2 years, but there are people who have been here. I mean, Sylvia, people have been here 30 years. I'm fortunate to be here for almost 12 years. And then even the people though coming, like we have a new person who started, leading our academic and student affairs. He's been here for like 9 months. And I'm like, how did we function without this person? Like he's brought the best energy and ideas. So whether it's, the people who've been here with the long institutional knowledge or the people who are just joining, the people care so much. And to me, that's the most important part of the program because that's what will make you successful. So and the alums and the students who become alums. So that's what I want
Awesome.
people to take away.
Well, how can folks get in touch with you or connect with Owen?
Yeah. I mean, the easiest thing if someone's like, I just want to learn about Owen, if they go to our website, immediately they'll see a form. And if you fill out that form, you will hear, within 2 days from someone on our team. They can also always, anyone who's listening can always email me. And it's so easy. It's just my name, amanda.fend@vanderbilt.edu. And love hearing from candidates. And as soon as you engage, though, truly in like any part of our website, attend an event, you will get a recruiting manager and you'll hear from them automatically.
Great. Well, don't clog up her email because then she won't be able to respond to me. But do reach out to her if you'd like to connect with her. Amanda, thanks so much for spending time with us today. It was fabulous. I know we could have talked longer. And thank you for listening to our podcast today. Until next time on GradTalk MBA, we will see you later. But you can find us at GradTalk on TikTok and learn more about our MBA admissions and GMAT GRE products in Magoosh.com. But until then, we'll see you next time. Thanks again, Amanda, and we'll see you on the next podcast.
Thank you, Eric.